Hello, hello. I can see people coming in now. Brilliant. Hello, everyone's coming in. Hi, I'm Lindsay from Park Lane Events. Thank you for coming. Welcome to my grotto. I thought I'd make it a bit festive. I'm not sure if it's a bit too much. And I've even got my Christmas jumper on today as well. This is where I'm officially losing it or just getting into the flow now. So welcome to December's webinar for conference and events. What's next? I will send a replay out tomorrow as well. I'm just looking at my little notes over here on a little post-it I've got, so I don't forget anything. Feel free to take pictures as we go along and share it on social media as well. That's great. It's a really nice support. But as I said, I will send it out tomorrow anyway, and on that will also be next month's webinar, which is the 7th of January, and that'll be about goal setting and looking at the year ahead a bit more as well. So I'll recap all of that at the end as well. So without further ado, I'll start sharing my screen. A lot of people that have registered today that can't make it, so they're going to watch the replay, which is and hello everybody watching a replay and on YouTube, because as I say, this will go off on YouTube. So can everybody see that? Can everyone see the see my screen? Yes, we can see. Lovely, thanks, Jade. I put the little "I'm doing fine, how you doing" meme on there because I got quite a lot of feedback either on email or with a few social media posts I put up about how people could relate to that. So I'm glad that made a few people giggle. So I appreciate that. Right, so what we're going to go through today, really excited. She says that's not moving along. There we go. Conference and events, what's next? Brief update on the government guidelines, snapshot of Christmas, update of the latest offerings and what's been working so far. Quick look at the new year, planning, goal setting and looking forward to 2021. But this is something I'm going to go into a bit more, obviously, next month. And then the panel discussion, keeping motivated and supporting the industry. So this is the bulk of today's webinar, which was really lovely. I was introduced to Chris Pinner from Innerfit and by Louise Warren, and the three of us had this chat / panel discussion, and it was really lovely. And so I hope you'll come out feeling nice and positive, a few more avenues of where you can look to keep self-motivated and supporting other people as well. So this is a snapshot. I'm not going to go into it too much because I think a lot of us are quite aware. We know that these tiers are in place from yesterday. So today's the 3rd of December, especially for those watching the replay. This is how the guidelines are as of today. The tiers are in place, as we know, from yesterday until the 31st of March, but there are going to be variations, as we know, of the tiers in that time. So we could all move from 1, 2 or 3. Now I haven't put tier 3 up there because we know that's pretty much you can't go in and out of that tier. So this is just to clarify what's happened today. It's quite interesting when I look back over some of the webinars as well as how much is changing each time. So that's just a quick recap there. And put in the chat any queries or anything as well as or if you want some more information, and I'll go through that as we go along. So conference and events, what does that mean for us with tiers? This has kind of been where it's a bit confusing because they just randomly said these numbers in these tiers. And for us, I'm not going to go into it too much because not a lot is really going to change for us, certainly not for the next webinar, as I say, which is going to be on the 7th of January. So tier 1 and 2, venues are permitted to hold conference and events up to 50% capacity, but this is really training and meetings. It's not social gatherings, obviously no Christmas parties. It's not very clear, obviously, and with these numbers, tier 1 is up to 4,000 if you're outdoors and 1,000 indoors. So this is going to be stadiums, COVID secure venues, those really large conference centres. But as we all know, you can't organise something that for those volumes of numbers in 5 minutes. So we know not a lot's really going to change as far as our conference and events are concerned. Tier 2 is up to 2,000 if you're outdoors and 500 indoors. And again, similar, we're talking quite big numbers there. So the rule of 30, that's kind of been tucked under the carpet a bit now. It's like that you can have more than 30 people at a conference, which is what it was. So you can have up to 500, but we all know it takes a while. a while to get the availability, to plan this, and to get everybody's buy-in from this. There's so many more stages, but I guess the good thing is this is the first time the government have said yes, you can do it. The good news, we've got the news of the vaccine, so I think we're probably all going to wait, or decision makers are going to wait until we're the other side of that, in which case we're looking at sort of April onwards. I know some people have got things booked for the summer, some people have got things booked from September onwards, and who knows what's going to happen before then. So, but that's what it says in writing on the government website. And also there is still more clarity required from the government, the department that deals with this as well. So hopefully that helps a bit, and we can start looking a bit more positively with events next year. I've added the exceptions below there. So if it is for key workers, essential education and training, and business travellers, that is a possibility to visit some of these places. But it's, again, does it really need to happen? In some situations it will, like I've often used the example of ambulance and the NHS being trained, firefighters. That's a continued thing that obviously needs to happen, but that is kind of the exceptions. So that's the government guidelines. Hope that's helped for now. So then the next slide will be a snapshot of Christmas. We've just got literally a couple of quick slides here. So update and last offerings for those last minute bookings, and feedback on what is working so far. So I know some people saw the last webinar that went into a lot more options of what's going on with Christmas parties and virtual offerings and all the different variations. So if that is something that you want a lot of information on, then check it out on YouTube, because that's up on YouTube now. Just put in Park Lane events and you'll see last month's. That's been viewed something like 140 times now, which is just crazy. So either maybe it's maybe mum's watching it like over and over again, I don't know, but people are watching it, so I'm glad hopefully it's useful there. So we know the obvious one: vouchers, hotel gift vouchers and experience stays, hampers. A lot of people have gone along those lines. It has been the most easiest thing to do, of course, with such short notice as well. And then what I did talk about last month was more about the virtual parties, joiner parties, and whether people are doing the gift box and hampers. So these are the companies that have still got availability. So I have put a slide in on there. So just very quickly, this is the only slide I've got on it. You've got Evolve, which have still got their Alpine Lodge, and they have got availability still, and that's a virtual party. You have another two rooms that you can go into, so you can choose to go into where the cocktail making's going, or you can choose, if there's entertainment, into another room, so you can sort of move around virtually, as it were, with them. So they've still got space. Oxygen, they have got 18th of December. Now they've sold 2,000 tickets, so this has been a really popular event. They have still got space as well, and this is that one night. You've got Russell Kane, as you can see there, hosting at the beginning, and then you have different entertainment coming on throughout the evening. So you can literally just sit back. It was something like £39 plus VAT per ticket, so it's quite reasonable, I think, for her whole evening laid on for you, albeit virtually, but that's quite nice, quite good fun. I'm going to give a big shout out to Bombay Sapphire and to the girls at Event Pros Live, who organised a virtual gin tasting experience. So that's the package that arrives at your house. They can do minimum numbers of 15 as well, so this helps, I think, for some of those smaller groups. And yeah, you have the Bombay Sapphire were there, the guy was there with all the different cocktails that you can make. You make the cocktails with him, and it was quite funny as well, obviously trying to squeeze these lemons and not get juice on the laptop and everything. A really generous offering actually there, good value for money, I think, and they can do things from half an hour if you just wanted something smaller as well. And then a shout out to Rhea at the event book, and again, she's got availability still with some of her offerings, anything from bingo to, again, similar to Evolve and Oxygen, where it's one virtual party night and you pay for that whole evening of entertainment. So you've got all the logos and everything there if you want to go direct to book anything with them. If you want to book through me, there's my details as well, if that's helpful at all. So then moving on to this is something I've quickly put in. I literally found this last night, talking about going into mental health and wellbeing, which is the majority of what today's webinar is going to be about. everyone's feeling shattered, everyone's winding down but still trying to keep up, and there's just so much overwhelm, and looking back and looking forward and trying to work out what's happening at Christmas. It's all just getting a bit too much. And I was talking to people the other day, and we're all just getting a bit like, our fuses are quite short now, with decision making and all sorts there. So I found this, and this is brilliant. So if you go onto the website, the NHS website, the government have put millions of pounds into mental health and wellbeing going forward for next year. So I'm going to be really interested in what they've got, what's going to come out over the next 6 months. It's obviously, well, it's very needed, and especially for our industry as well, and with the conference and events. And this is an app, so you go on the website, and you answer the 5 quick questions there, and you can literally do this while I'm talking to you now if you wanted. It's so easy, and you do these quick questions, and then it comes up. So that's where it says your mind's plan. This is what it came up to me for me, and then there were 6, that's just one at the top, there were 6 solutions about, this is something that you could do. And although some of the time we know this, but do we do it? Whereas this was just like throwing it at me, going, what about this? What about that? And if you don't like what it says, like it says there, listen, progressive music, relaxation, under that, there's a, if you don't like this, swipe, a bit like Tinder, I suppose. I don't know, I don't use Tinder actually, obviously. Anyway, if you swipe off that, it gives you another alternative. And I kept swiping, thinking, well, how many alternatives? What if none of this is what I'm looking for? I think there are up to 10 different alternatives. So you've got 6 ideas, and each one of those ideas, you can have another 10 options. So that's pretty much, you could have up to 60 ideas of however you're feeling right now, and that was from what I had put in anyway, so you could always go back. So that was something very quickly that I found last night, and I think there's going to be much more of these things coming in that's going to help us keep us on the straight and narrow. So without further ado, this was really, really lovely. I had a really good conversation with Louise Warren, who's an event in the event industry. She's mental health first aider and wellbeing advocate as well, and she introduced me to Chris Pinner, who's the founder of Innerfit, and his motto is feel well, work well. Now we did it so that they give their individual introductions anyway. I pre-recorded it because I'm just so nervous of doing this kind of thing live, and then my internet breaks down or whatever, or it all goes robotic, and it's such a shame for an opportunity to be missed there to share this information. So it is pre-recorded. So as I go on to this next slide, I'm going to click play, and then we'll go straight into it, but I will still be here in the corner of your screen here. So hi Louise, can you hear this? Thank you so much for joining me today on my December webinar. So as you know, we're focusing on meditation and well-being during this time and into next year. So Louise first, and then Chris, perhaps you could both briefly introduce yourselves, why you are so passionate about well-being and motivation, and how we can help everybody out there today.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Lindsay, for having us on today. It's a real pleasure to be part of this webinar. For those that don't know me, I'm Louise Warren. I'm an event planner. I've been in the events industry for around 16, 17 years. So yeah, I've been around the block a few times in this industry, but yeah, at the moment, obviously it's been a really, really challenging year for all of us. My background is I've worked in venues, as well as I was, before COVID hit, I was based in the Cayman Islands, and I worked for a destination management company. But unfortunately, because of COVID, the island shut down, so I found myself back in the UK. But it's been a really amazing time in terms of just connecting with people and networking, and you know, your point about mental health and well-being, I'm really sort of passionate about that subject, because I truly believe, especially at the moment, that us as event planners, we've really suffered a lot this year in the industry, and I think at the moment it's all about connecting and helping each other out. And so it's just a real pleasure to be able to talk about this with you today, and try and, you know, encourage others to keep talking and connecting as well.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Chris?
I'll follow on, yeah, and you've given me the blueprint in terms of length as well, so thanks, Lou. I'm the founder of a company called Innerfit. We believe that if you feel well, you work well, and that really goes back to my old job in strategy consulting out of university, where I was working some quite long hours, didn't feel well, didn't work well, contrast that with today and post jobs, and it's just a different picture. And I think it's common sense, but not common practice, that feel well, work well is what we all believe. So I think today, fast forward, we've got a team of nutritionists, mental health coaches, mindset experts, etc., working with companies like Discovery Channel and A1 Global to essentially help people feel well and work well. And my sister also works in the events industry, so I've had a little bit of insight into her world in the last 6 months too.
That's brilliant, and that's so good to know that there's somebody that's got that ear in the industry as well, actually, that can sort of marry everything together. And then, so from an individual point of view, Louise, what are you finding people are hard at the moment? What tips do you have to keep them motivated? I know you're a mental health first aider, for example, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I said, at the beginning, I think it's just really important at the moment that we all just keep talking to each other and keep connecting as much as possible. And I think it's also really important to ask one another how we're doing today. It's a really, really important question to ask somebody, how are you doing today? And I think at the moment in our industry, obviously there's a lot of us that have unfortunately lost jobs and are really struggling at the moment. But I think it's all about, encouraging each other and making sure that we stay well and stay mentally well as well. I've qualified during this pandemic as a mental health first aid trainer, and I completely encourage others to perhaps undertake that course as well. It's a really interesting course. You learn a lot of things, as well as meeting new people on the course. So for those that are interested, I really encourage you to look at Mental Health First Aid England, and you'll find where to get qualified on there. But yeah, it's just keep connecting, and LinkedIn is a great way in our industry to connect with others, and ask questions all the time.
That sounds brilliant. And just quickly, how long did that course take you as well? How long?
It was only it was 4 days, so it was half days, so 4 mornings. And really good. And I was on a group of, I think there was 6 of us, and it was obviously all online, all via Zoom, but really, really interesting and really good to talk to others. And from my perspective, I've suffered with mental health and have been diagnosed with depression a few years ago, and it's really interesting to kind of talk about my experiences and listen to others as well. And I just think it's really important that we kind of all understand each other. So yeah, definitely I would encourage others to have a look at those courses.
I think that's brilliant. It's certainly something I'm going to look into as well, just for my own well-being and to help everybody else as well. So then, Chris, same to you really with regards to corporate groups. What are you finding people are finding difficult at the moment? Do you have any tips, for example, at some of the events and activities that you are being asked for or implementing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we actually did a bit of research September, October, and spoke to kind of 15 wellbeing leaders, we call them. So people tasked with shaping the wellbeing agenda at their companies, regardless of size. And we found that the 15 people, some key themes came out. So 1 was around mental health, unsurprisingly. 2 was around leadership, so getting their buy-in to lead and role model, but also making sure they're okay as well, because leaders are people too. And then the 3rd was around culture and connection. And I think that's really shone through recently as well, because whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, most of us are struggling to get that social connection right now in real life. And I think if you're not in the same working situation you were before, or you're not in work, that's a really difficult place to be. So I think making yourself vulnerable and sharing, just as Lou's done as well, is really, really cool. That's been really, really powerful. I think sharing stories has been quite a nice tool that we've seen, not even tool, it's just a good thing to do. And then I think following up on that, if we fast forward from September, October, when we did the research to right now, motivation has definitely been a thing. I think it's getting a little bit bleak outside, getting darker at 4 o'clock. It's not like we've really got clear milestones. We've had some good news recently, but there's no clear benchmarks like there normally would be, and reasons to celebrate. So I think I'll wrap up in a second. When it comes to motivation, we typically think of 3 things. So 1 is start with why and have a foundation of wellbeing. So what's your reason why you want to get up in the morning or achieve something, that type of thing? Why do you want to do it? And tactical things like writing 50 reasons down, why it's going to benefit you. I've seen really, really powerful, guaranteed you'll feel different at the end of having finished that list.
That's a big list.
That's a big list, 50 things.
It is a big list, yeah. But I've done it as well, and you think, wow, that's a big number. But as soon as you've written 5 or 6, you think, okay, this is actually really, really doable. The second one would be about finding bright spots. I think as human beings, we've got a tendency to maybe focus on the negative sometimes. Like if a pupil gets an A, a B, a D, and an F, then as parents, we might look at the D and the F. But actually, like if we ask the question, what's working well right now? So maybe we're getting out for a walk at lunchtime, or we're sleeping well. Like how can we do more of that? And then the third piece would be about shaping the path. So it's just to make it as easy as possible to make the healthy decision when it comes to well-being, for instance. So putting the trainers out by your bed, or having a 2-litre water bottle like full at the start of the day, these type of things. So I think it can be quite intimidating, I guess, sometimes to think, oh, there's so much to do and I'm not feeling motivated to do it. But the overall point we always land on is like try and start small. Like the smallest thing you could do, like put it in half and then do that.
And it is a small, it's, you know, just to add to that, you know, it is all about the small things. And I think it comes back to not just doing things, physical things, but it's also mental fitness as well. So it's about being grateful. You know, I'm a big advocate for gratefulness. And, you know, there's been a couple of times I've done it on Instagram where I've done my grateful year. And
yes,
I think
I remember that.
Yeah, it's just really important, I think, just to find, even if it's just one thing per day to be grateful for and write it down. You know, I find that really, really kind of helps to helps your mindset and gets you in a bit of a positive spin. I mean, it can be anything as simple as I'm grateful that I got out of bed this morning. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be anything large. You know, I'm grateful for this cup of tea or this coffee, or, you know, it sounds, to some people it might sound a bit silly, but actually it's those little things that really make a huge difference. And the minute you change your mindset around that, then you start to feel a lot more positive, because not everybody loves physical exercise. It's not for everybody. So there are other ways to kind of incorporate to be mentally fit.
And when you were doing that, because I remember seeing that coming up on Instagram, where surely there were days where you were like, oh, I can't even be bothered to do my daily gratitude today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it did make me think. I used to do it every night, so I'd post every night, so it would be, you know, what was I grateful for today? And yeah, you're right, there were some days where I was like, oh God, I've had a really crap day, like what can I be grateful for? But you always find something, even if it's like what you've had for dinner, or, you know, maybe speaking to a friend. Yeah, it's a good challenge, and I think actually I'm probably going to do it this next year, so I might even start it from January 1st. So, you know, if anybody wants to follow me on Instagram, or maybe I'll do something on LinkedIn. It's a really good practice for people to get into. So I would totally encourage others to do that for sure.
I think that's a great idea, and I think that's the thing I'm finding that so many people are struggling with, as we've all just said, motivation and focus, concentrating. So how can we keep people determined as they normally are, and that resilience this industry has? How can we keep, or any tips that we've got to keep people going throughout the year? Chris, what are you putting into your practices for your corporate groups, for example?
Yeah, thank you for asking this. It's a good question as well, and it's important to start from where people are, I think, with this one. What I mean by that is, if you were to think, okay, out of 10, how motivated am I feeling right now? Some people listening might be an 8 or a 9 at the moment. Other people might be a 2 or a 3. Like we typically in our workshops ask the question, how are you feeling? And yesterday we had a session where some people put a 4 and other people put a 9. So I think it's okay to like have a real range, and understand as well, look, there's an individual that's going to change for you over time too. But let's say someone is feeling N out of 10. The question is, how do you get to N plus 1? So when it comes to like tools and tactics, I'd really just think about like what's worked well for you in the past, thinking about those bright spots or things that you've done as an individual before. Like what can you copy and paste? Because I'm a big believer in kind of like coaching style. Most of us have the answers within us. It's just about having the space and time to realize it. For me, when Lou was talking, like I've got a nice pink notepad that I used to and need to get back into as well, like my gratitude and self-reflection at the end of the day. But when I talked about shaping the path, when I put this on my bed, like after I've made my bed in the morning, put it on the bed before I go to bed. The last thing I do is my self-reflection. So that's just, it makes it easy to make the choice that I want to do. And I found when you reflect and have time to think about the things that have gone well, all of a sudden you do start to just feel that a little bit more motivated. And if I'm a 6 out of 10, then maybe I feel a 7. And don't beat yourself up. I'll leave a bit of space for you, Lou, as well. Sorry, but get excited. Leave space to like forgive yourself too. There's research that shows, this is a psychologist called Carol Dweck, who's written a book called Mindset. And there's also a researcher in California called Kelly McGonigal, whose last name I might be mispronouncing, but she talks about people that stick to their New Year's resolutions are generally the ones that if they give up, and we all do, they get back on it within 7 days. So if you can revisit your New Year's resolution, forgive yourself, say, okay, I'm human, mistakes happen, let's start again. If you can do that within 7 days, then chances are you're going to succeed. So I'll be quiet now.
No, I'm writing this down, and then I'm going to wait for Lou.
Your pink book. Good on you, pink book. Great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's nice. I've got 2 of them.
Love it. So Lou, anything to add there? Because I was just thinking, I love this whole 7 days thing, and I think there's an 80-20 rule, isn't it? Like, don't worry about it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, exactly as Chris said, it's all about writing stuff down, and also to be forgiving of yourself, because it's so difficult at the moment for some of us that are struggling to find work or have lost our jobs or whatever. It can be a real daily struggle to kind of figure out what to do next. And I'm guessing, there are going to be some days where some people are just going to be like, oh, I just can't be bothered today. Like I've job searched, I've, done as much as I can. And if you feel like there's a day where you just want to sit in front of the TV or do something else, then that's fine. Like you're human, and you should always kind of, if you feel like doing something like eating a bag of crisps, or do you know what I mean? Like some people feel guilty about doing little things like that, but actually, if that's what you want to do it. No one's gonna judge you, and it is just all about forgiving yourself and moving forward. It's like, I had a couple of glasses of red wine last night. Felt a bit cloudy this morning, not gonna lie, but so what? I'm not gonna, we didn't do this first thing about it. I'm glad we didn't do this first thing then. But yeah, at the end of the day, like, just do what makes you happy. And that's what it's about, really. And I think, moving, and I'm sure we'll probably come on to this in a second, but, I think moving forward, next into 2021, and especially for those that hopefully we will be organising events, in the latter part of 2021, but I'd really like to see, some of our event planners and companies really now incorporating mental health and wellbeing into their events. I think that is now the way forward. It's all very well having these conversations and talking about what we should be doing and writing things down, but actually it's about how do we incorporate this going forward.
That does lead on really well with what I was going to ask next, and that is talking about how we can implement that in with both of what you do, whether it's group stuff with Chris, with like you need perhaps minimum numbers, sort of what group sizes. I think you've mentioned for like workshops from 15, but you also do stuff for like 200. And we are still virtual at the beginning of the year, and I know that the government has said you can do some face-to-face, but that's actually not really going to happen for a bit later on for these kinds of events. So what kind of things can we be looking at, or can planners be thinking about for next year?
So from my point of view, I think, being a freelance event planner at the moment, what I would encourage more planners to do, and even if you're working within an actual corporate company yourself and planning events, I would really encourage doing something a bit more quirky and thinking a bit outside the box. So if you're running a conference, a day conference, then maybe do something at the beginning of that conference, whether it's a meditation or a yoga session or a mindful walk or something to that effect, which really kind of gets people kind of thinking about themselves, their inner selves, and then they can go into the conference maybe feeling a bit more motivated or whatever it may be. Also down to things like good nutrition at the conference, because there have been times where conferences don't serve the greatest food, you know, so I think we need to start encouraging healthiness within our events. You know, it's just little things like that. I mean, I'm working on a project at the moment whereby I'm going to be working hopefully alongside other corporate planners to create retreats for corporates. So, you know, gone are the days of kind of, you know, celebrating your top salespeople, which is still well and good, but actually it's about how to actually create a retreat for those people to kind of start really thinking about themselves and their mental health and their well-being. I think those are the key things we need to focus on: mental health, well-being, and how we incorporate that into events. So I'm hopeful next year that, you know, I hope to be able to do that with a lot of clients, and I'd like to see, you know, our other fellow event planners doing the same. And I'm sure, you know, from Chris's point of view, if he's going into corporate companies, then, you know, what he does is amazing as well in terms of well-being.
So that leads over to you, Chris. Brilliant.
Yeah, beautifully. No, thank you. I think, yeah, I'm thinking from the perspective of like event sponsors or attendees or venues, and then how Innerfit relates to that. And I suppose normally we do work with, and over the last 4 years I've worked with corporates, so private company, public sector, coming to us and asking for a workshop or a class or something like that. But actually in the last 6 months, if I think about the events or things we've done, there's definitely been more interest and a few books events. So hosting things like Pilates, we did a law firm industry event recently. We also hosted energizers and that type of thing. And it just, I think it's integrating wellbeing into the schedule is something that benefits attendees. And ultimately, if it benefits attendees and they feedback well and they want to come next year, then that benefits sponsors and the venue. So I think that small stuff like energizers and hosting yoga classes is probably a baseline level for forward-thinking companies looking to integrate wellbeing. I think to take it to the next level and really like embed it and integrate wellbeing properly into an event is really interesting. And I think what that looks like probably depends on the nature of the industry and who's attending and all that type of thing. But doing it properly, I think, is what I'd like to see in 2021 rather than a token gesture, which is a start to our point before. It's about getting the ball rolling. So it'd be interesting to see the most aspirational events in 2021, what they look like.
And I'm guessing a lot of the stuff you're doing at the moment is virtual, Chris, as well, because obviously it's harder to be able to see people face to face. And actually at the beginning, I'm going to embarrass you now, at the beginning, just before we started recording, you were doing like all these stretches and things. You started coming at let's do something.
No shame, don't care. Honestly, I think it's great.
How is this helping us?
It changes the state. If we really want to go for it, you'd like, because I've done this in February. We had an event and a kick-off by doing breathe out, breathe in. And you do that for 10, and you've changed the state. Physiologically, you've got more oxygen in your brain, you feel more alert, you're ready to learn. So when I say energizer, like we've done that.
Sorry, Chris. I think it's a really good point to make, that even though at the beginning of next year we're still going to be doing virtual events, there's no reason why we can't incorporate this stuff just because we're not physically with one another. There's no excuse. We can still incorporate all these really good things for mental health and well-being into a virtual event. It doesn't need to be in person. So I think that's a really good point to make.
And I suppose then with lead-in times and how busy like your diaries are, that's probably going to vary as well as to how big the inquiry is. But like, could you be able to do something quickly for, say, if someone inquired for next week, or would it be like, oh, you really need like a month sort of lead in time? I'm pretty sure that's quite a vague question depending on what the spec was in the first place, but perhaps something that's quite straightforward, something for like 30 people. How quickly is it to sort of turn something like that around?
On Chris.
I'll go first, and then I can try and tee you up, I guess, like you teed me up. But generally, we'd prefer if we had a bit more notice. So
what's the idea?
The guidance is 2 weeks or more, so that the company or event could promote the session suitably. Obviously, this is all dependent on event planning too, but we did organise in the space of 5 days a wellness month for a company that decided that they wanted a wellness month for December to celebrate the end of the year in a slightly different way, which I thought was really cool, by the way, because normally everyone's just drinking and eating, but to celebrate with a wellness month, I think shows how far we've come in 2020, that's actually a genuine thing that will happen. And yeah, to answer your question directly, that the preference would be over 2 weeks. In reality, it can happen in under 5 days, and that's like 10 classes and 2 workshops to give you a sense of what that involves. So,
that's pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's amazing if you can do that. But I think, it comes down to philosophy, especially being an event planner, that anything is possible. And I think, there's nothing that you can't do. And, we always, I've certainly had clients in the past that have asked for crazy things. And sometimes you might not be able to deliver on what they've asked for, but then you can also come up with other suggestions. So depending on what the time frame is, you can always work something out. So yeah, I don't think, for me personally, I can work with any time. So yeah,
right, it's about adapting if we can. That's spec, I guess. There's just so much that we can obviously carry on talking about. But listen, how do people watching, how do they find you? Where would they go next? And I'll put sort of details on the webinar, and I'll be sending your details on to people after anyway. But just give a shout out. Lou, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, I'm on LinkedIn, Louise Warren. I'm on Instagram. But yeah, if anybody needs any, help with event planning for next year in terms of incorporating mental health and well-being, then please do reach out to me. Probably LinkedIn is the best way. And I'd be happy to connect with people. And as I say, I'm working on a project at the moment to create more retreats for corporates. So if anybody's interested in that, then please reach out.
Brilliant, thanks, Lou. Chris?
Myself, find me on LinkedIn again, Chris Pinner. I'm actually not on Instagram, but the website is probably the best place to go to check out Innerfit a little bit more, which is www.innerfit.co.uk. And similar to Lou, if something's resonated from the conversation today and you want to pick up a conversation, whether it's about an event or a company, we do a lot of workshops, lots of one-to-ones and a few other things. So we'd be more than happy to chat.
Brilliant. Guys, I can't thank you enough. I massively appreciate your time. I really think we can explore this so much more as well. January, I want to talk about goal setting, so perhaps we can do something again then. And yeah, let's just keep in touch. And big hugs around you both for doing this with me. Thank you so much. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So hopefully you found that really useful. I mean, we could have chatted about that. We could have kept on for hours, I think, with lots of different ideas. And I think it was really good from Louise's point of view on individual, what we can do now for ourselves, and Chris's point of view for groups. So let me know if you want their information, if you want anything extra from them as well. I took out from that as well the things that Chris was saying with you'll find your why, you'll find your bright spots, shaping the path. I thought they were 3 really key things actually that we could do for ourselves and within our companies and our events as well. So I think that was finding transferable things sometimes is good. I loved Louise's grateful diary. You don't have to do it on Instagram, you could just do it for yourself. And again, going back to that 7 days, even if you don't get to do it every single day and you miss a day, or that 8 to 20 rule that I normally apply to, just keep going back to it and having a look and doing it each time, because when you go back and you have a look at these things, it's really nice as the time passes to it picks you up. It does pick you up quite a lot. And energy energizer, and JJ, I saw that you're thinking about doing that for your next team call, which is fantastic. So do put in the chat if you liked any of the stuff that you just saw as well, if there was anything that you thought, oh my god, that's really good, or I'd love to know a bit more about another aspect, because there was just so much. That was quite quick sort of snapshot there, and as they were saying, give yourself time and space to think about it. What can you do? Reflecting back, there's so much more about resilience. I'll talk about that in January as well, because are we putting that time? I've got quite a range of people that watch this webinar, and from Louise's point of view, she was talking about people that perhaps haven't got a job at the moment, and it's that days that perhaps stretching out and picking yourself up and just keeping yourself going and being forgiving to yourself. And then you've got some people that are just running around like headless chickens, especially with all the virtual events and cramming a lot of things in, learning new things all the time, perhaps not enjoying it as much as the normal job. I'm finding there's a lot of people out there that are obviously grateful to have the job and everything. They're aware that other people haven't got jobs as well. But obviously this isn't what people have gone into with the whole virtual side. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were saying if we'd wanted to do virtual stuff, we'd have obviously gone perhaps for a more IT technical role if in events in the first place. So it's kind of embracing all of that and going, you know, you've done amazingly well to have got this far. And I think that's why I wanted to do some of these things today, to go, you know, let's just get through the Christmas time as positively as we can, when that's obviously going to be really different for everybody as well. But put that time in your diary to go, put the time in to give yourself that time as well, and have 20 minutes or whatever and go, right, I'm turning my phone off, or I'm going to go into a different room, or go and sit in the car wherever, because everybody's space is so different than it used to be now. Go, right, what am I going to do for myself over the next week or over the next month, or what do I want to be doing on a regular basis that I know keeps me fulfilled and satisfied? And perhaps, as Chris was saying about going back and looking at what works, what were you doing? And I think this is good. We've got such a big chunk of this year where so much we're doing things, or have been doing things that we didn't plan, obviously. So perhaps this time last year, what were your plans and what were your goals and what did you want to do? And can you pick up some of those to take them forward to next year and almost press that? I think we're going to hear the word reset a lot, because I think January to March is going to be a massive reset time for everybody. So then that just leads me on just one little thing that I'm going to watch tonight, which is by Shelter. It's obviously 3rd of December at 7 o'clock tonight. It's a little Christmas carol, virtual Christmas carol concert, and this is just, if you just fancy doing it, it's just something I'm going to do. I sent it to my mum as well, and I thought, oh, this would be really nice to get into the festive spirit, because my grotto here isn't enough already, obviously, but obviously it's supporting people who are homeless. And you know, we are all and have been through a lot this year, and this will continue until things do start getting better after the vaccine, after, you know, I'm talking about a work point of view as well as you know, personally with our families and friends and things, but you know, I am aware there's always someone worse off than I am. I'm a great believer in that, and that is what keeps me going as well. And homelessness is obviously one of them. So this just came up. This is a free event, or you can obviously donate to Shelter. So I love that it's accessible to everybody. It's hosted from St Martin in the Fields Church, which I think will be just beautiful. Just 45 minutes of heartwarming readings, reflection, and song. So I think that's just a really lovely way to ease ourselves into Christmas, as well as helping charities as well. So I just put that as a nice little feel good thing at the end there, if anybody wanted any more tips of you know, where to go, things to pick yourself up with. So then that just finishes the whole webinar. I've made good time today. I'm trying to not take up the whole hour to give time before you're next to me, again making the time for the time, really. So if there are any questions, put them in the chat, or anything that you'd like to finish off with, please do. If there are any inquiries from anything that you've seen today, you've got my details obviously, but they're up there, especially for those watching on YouTube. There are my details there, and again, if there's further topics that you want to hear about, so in January, as I've mentioned, it's going to be more about the goal setting, looking ahead. We'll have another government update by then, if not a couple more, but we'll be able to look forward properly then. At the moment, I think we're just trying to sort of get to Christmas and that time where we're off, or that time where everybody's off, and with our families again, and we can just sort of stop and breathe there. So topics from January will be about the goal setting, exhibitions and things. They're starting to get into the diary again, so I'll probably talk a bit about that. I've had a chat with the girls from Event Pros Live, who those that don't know are Eventbrite provides a corporate membership for event buyers, and the couple of girls there are going to, hopefully, we're having a chat before the Thursday, the 7th of January, so we'll hopefully record something to talk about networking in the new year and how we see that's going to go, so I think it's going to be quite a good one in January as well. Thanks, Eleanor, you said great session, thank you very much. If there is any questions or anything, do let me know, but what I will say, thank you so much. This is the last one, obviously, of the year. What I'll do is I'll send a replay afterwards, and in that will be the information for the January one to register as well, which I loved. I did that on the last month's one, and people signed up straight away, so well organised. That's the one thing I love about working with such organised people. Thanks Trish, thanks Emma, thanks Eleanor, thank you for your lovely comments. I'm glad it's been okay. I'm trying to do something different each time as well, so may I say thank you again for your support and keeping on. I know some of you have been watching these every time as well, which I'm super grateful for. It's another chunk out of the day. And putting it on YouTube, I think, is really working. So feel free to share that once you've got that as well, once you've got the YouTube link. So may I say farewell. Thank you. I'll stop sharing a second. There we go. Let me say farewell. Thank you so much. Lots of love and hugs. And may I wish you a very Merry Christmas. Take care, everybody. And thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.